Hey, you might not really realize this right now, but there's an actual shift in mindset that you have to experience before you actually start designing better workflows. I think with anything in life, it's all just a mental game. Most people they go from a mindset of just like doing more, like doing work or like doing things in real life, like task, sort of like oriented thinking, and then they start applying that to workflows, but it doesn't actually work. So all you have to do is just shift your mindset towards designing better instead of doing more work. You might not understand what this means right now, but if you watch this entire video, then you'll understand by the end. So when people start thinking of like um, approaching how to approach productivity, they think they have to do more faster, right? They think, oh, I only have this certain amount of time in the day. I just have to knock out this, and that, and that, and that. And they use all sorts of tools, but they still feel overwhelmed. Why? Because at the end of the day, they might not even accomplish anything of like quality. Um, what matters in life, and I feel like you might resonate with this as well. It's not about how fast you're working; it's about what you're actually working on. um, I'll give you an example that I got from Iman Gaji. So it's like a lot of people say hypothetically, we all have one destination we want to reach in life, and we all, we want to get there as fast as possible, right? Because as we know, there's only so much time in the day, right? Um, some people use better tools than other people. That's just it. Like some people just have better vehicles, like other people have jets, and then actually turn this off. Other people, they use jets, and then other people, they use cars, and other people use boats, and so on and so forth. Depending on the tools you use, you might get there faster, but that doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, it's all about what you're actually like doing to get there. So basically, the main concept, is that the people who win, they don't just get things done; they build systems that get things done for them. So meaning, yes, you and I could walk to the destination, but if someone else has like a whole concierge of people who just make it easy for them to get to the destination, then what are we doing, right? If you want to go from being a person who is what I consider to be a worker, right, someone who's always asking what to do at any moment, to a system builder, who someone who asks how they can remove themselves from the process entirely, then there's something you need to start thinking about, right? And we're going to explore this today. Um, you by the end of this, you're going to understand why shifting your mindset is so powerful, what it takes to actually start designing systems, and how automation is doing more than just time saving, right? It's literally redesigning reality, like because everything is mental at the end of the day. It all starts in your mind, and then everything is just a reflection. Everything in your reality is nothing more than a reflection of whatever's happening in your mind. So by the end of this, you might have a concept in your head of like how you could start thinking of these in exponential terms. um, Again, you might not understand what any of this means right now, but you will in the future. Let's just get started. So I want you to imagine two people, right? They're both launching products. One dives in, right? He's writing email sequences, he's creating landing pages, he's hustling hard on socials, doing all types of marketing. But the other one pauses. You know what he's thinking about? He's thinking about what happens. Like, he's thinking about, yes, he's going to be designing landing pages, but what happens after the click? He's thinking about, yeah, even if someone gets to my sales page, what happens after that? Like, how can he build it once and then have it work every single time, um, whereby he doesn't have to constantly be writing emails whenever he gets some kind of email for a sale. He doesn't have to do all that type of stuff, right? Those two, that's the difference between a worker and a builder, right? A worker is someone who's like relatively reactive. They focus on execution, you know, like worker ants. That's literally why I call them workers, right? When new work appears, they do it themselves. Their success is tied to their time and energy. And if there's one thing that I know for certain, and I feel like you should know, too is the fact that since time is probably the only true resource we ever have, like as human beings, then it's the most valuable thing. So if your ability to be successful is tied to your time, then you're not using your time properly. Um, Time isn't really like time is the one thing that we don't want to leverage because it only has so much weight, and it's always just drifting away from us. So your time and your energy, two things you don't want to leverage. You can leverage so many other things, and that's what builders are really, really good at. So builders are proactive, right? They think in terms of systems, not tasks. Their success is tied to their leverage. Things like code, things like connections, networks, right? They create assets and flows that can run without them, basically. Workers often they look busier while builders look idle, and yet there's a difference, right? Because workers burn out, workers hit ceilings, workers are constantly busy, while builders are scaling, builders are compounding their outputs, and they're creating growth engines. So I want you to do something right now. If you were to pick between those two people, who would you pick? And I think it's very obvious who you'd pick. You'd pick the builder, right? You don't just want to work. You want to work once and then have your systems work for you for the rest of the time. You want to build machines, but you don't want to have to crank the machine every single time. You just want to build a machine that can crank itself. You want to create freedom in your business, right? And I think the concept of these freedoms is like time freedom, location freedom, all sorts of like these freedoms, strategic freedom, creative freedom. You want to have those, especially in this new age that we're going into, like the new age of work that is very visible to see, where it's like people can work from anywhere in the world, they can do anything they like, and they basically just pay contractors who have skills and then find ways to monetize those skills. That's the new age of work we're in, and you have to shift from this mindset of being a worker, of being a task-oriented person who's constantly just working for someone, to becoming someone who can design systems whereby you will get work done without actually putting in so much time and energy into it. So this is the main problem. Basically, most people think in steps. They think, okay, first I have to do this, and then I have to do this, then I have to do this. But since you have decided that you're going to pick the builder, you are not most people, right? You need to start thinking in terms of blocks, and we spoke about this in a previous video as well. How what you sort of everything is a system. Everything can be boiled down into inputs, functions, and outputs, and I'm gonna just build on that right now. So blocks are basically repeatable chunks of logic. They are functions, they are systems. That's the shift in thinking that you need, right? You don't have you shouldn't be thinking about doing things. You should be thinking about designing systems so that things are done for you. Okay, this I don't know if this makes sense to you, but this makes total sense to me. Maybe it's because of the slight god complex that I have. I've always had this thing of just designing things so that they work for me. I remember the first time I created a shell script that could create all these different documents that it was manual work that I had to do every single time, but it would create these different documents, and also created shell scripts that could create folders and so on and so forth, just based on just simple typing, where I don't have to think too much. That was so cool to me the first time I did it, and I understand now why it was so cool. It was just creating something that could do a ton of work that would have taken me minutes, and just seeing it done in seconds is so incredible. And I'm sure you feel that feeling too. Just not having to do things, but just designing something once and then having it do things for me. That's so incredible. So yeah, life is basically a game of three, right? Everything is about inputs, functions, and outputs. So inputs are the triggers. It's what goes in, right? Think about the ingredients into whatever you're cooking. Functions are the engines. So they are what control the transformations. Think about the pot, the stove, everything like that. all of it, and even your movements, like how you're stirring the pot, how you're doing this and that, and then the outputs are the results. So that's the cooked food that actually comes out on the other side. But remember, every part is a system in and of itself, meaning that the outputs are actually just inputs, sort of the food that's going to go into your stomach. And so does that not mean that the input on the other side was also an output of some kind? You understand? And this means that everything is interconnected, everything is related. This is a huge thing that you really need to start thinking of, because that's what we do as like automated systems specialists. We try to find ways to actually connect and integrate these systems that are already, like, we already know that they're interconnected. We already know that all of these systems actually, like, they have literal direct connections, even though the connections might not seem obvious at first. We know these connections exist because we know that life is a game of three. Life is a game of inputs, functions, and outputs. So what you need to ask yourself here is very simple. Can you remove yourself as an input? Can you automate the process? And can you reuse the output? Because at the end of the day, everything is interconnected. So if the output can be reused somewhere as some kind of input, maybe to do some kind of useful work, then you should be reusing it. So what you need to do is you need to build modules that do work, right? You don't just want to learn tools, you want to learn structure. I remember there was a time where I was dealing with HeyGen videos, I'm like AI avatar videos. How I normally see people do this is they didn't like take the time to actually like look at the documentation. They would just like go ahead and just make, sort of find an AI video creation tool online, and there's quite a few of them that just make, sort of AI avatar UGC, and then they pick one of them. But what they end up doing is they end up spending dollars and dollars and dollars just because they didn't want to learn the actual structure of like how to actually build a payload, how to actually like set these up, how to set up an avatar, and then how to create a video yourself. Like, they'd rather just learn a tool instead of learning the structure, which is it. Like, I never understood that. So yeah, don't just go surface level, go deeper, and don't just build flows, because building flows is so easy. And this is something I also think about a lot. It's like how easy it is to build and get flows, because there's so many like free templates out there. Everyone's just offering a free template. Templates are not what you need to be thinking about. Yes, templates are very useful if you want to have like working sections of sort of working functions that you can like reuse. But it's only useful if you actually leverage those functions to actually do real work. So you need to start documenting, you need to start templatizing and modularizing everything, right? You switch from thinking in steps to thinking in modules. And this is something I do a lot, right? I create sub workflows every, like, all the time. And these sub workflows, they go into main workflows a lot. It's just like reusable modules that just come in and then they just get reused again and again and again. And this is something I teach people to do all the time. So systems thinking is basically, it's not about tools, it's about how you see the world, right? It's about how you have to start shifting your perspective in terms of like inputs, functions, and outputs, right? And everything will start making sense. So let's just run through like 5 points. So number one, you have to start thinking in flows, not features, because what most people do is they make the mistake of getting caught up in what a tool can do. They forget that features don't build systems, but workflows do. So what I mean by this is the fact that you could have like a really cool tool. Like, I recently discovered a tool called AYRShare. I can't even say RShare, and it can basically post to social media. So like in any way, shape, or form, it could even post like its Instagram stories, which is very powerful. But at the same time, there's so many other tools that do the exact same thing. So if you're trying to build a system that just posts to social media and as many social medias as possible, you don't have to choose Arya Share, which only has, which has quite a lot of limitations in the free model, but only like once you go into the paid model, it's way too much. You can just like set up a Zapier account and then do the exact same thing in there with those integrations, right? Features don't build systems, workflows do. Features are isolated functions that you could use, but flows are sequences of logical steps with context, right? And if there's something that I've realized a lot is context is everything. So what you need to understand is if you're building something and you have to understand how every node links together. But even beyond that, how the entire flow links together with your entire systems. So I like this was something that I thought about when I was building my lead gen flow. How I could generate these leads, but then I needed to now qualify them. Like on top of that, how I was going to link up everything from the previous steps. I needed as much context as possible for the next steps, which is why I had to store information in the previous steps as well. So because I was building for the future, I was able to store context in the past, which is something that you need to think about as well. So it's a major issue that I see most often, because like people normally they like when they want to show things off on YouTube, like I used to, and I'm probably going to be doing a lot now as well. They build for edge cases, not actually like demos. I mean, what you have to do, I mean, is build for edge cases, and don't just build for demos like most people do. So the thing is, like, real systems break, and this is because they have like exceptions, they have failures, they have variables. Um, you know this a lot. Like you're trying to, you know, uh, sort of call an API, but it's asynchronous, so you kind of you have to like wait, and then you have to like do a polling request, and the polling request might be a failure or it might have succeeded, and you have to like put all those checks in place. I mean, there's like a lot of things that could go wrong. Like when you're trying to access a service, it might return an error, and now you're cooked. Um, like you can set up the most perfect scenario in a like a template, and then you could like run it from start to finish, and then say, yeah, this is like the best thing. But that's exactly it. Like, do scenarios actually work that way? No. Perfect scenarios, I feel like they don't exist. I feel like most workflows fail like 5% of the time, and you know there's a lot of friction that, like, there's a lot of things that could happen, so you have to design with that in mind. I mean, you have to design workflows that actually think for themselves. And I've spoken about this in a previous video where I was like talking about logic, and logical conditioning, like building logical conditioning into workflows, just using the built-in nodes. This is something that you have to consider, especially when you're trying to like separate yourself. Remember, you're a builder, right? You're trying to separate yourself from the process as much as you possibly can. So another thing that you need to start thinking about is building feedback loops. So systems decay without feedback. And the best systems, they can report, they can alert, they can evolve. And we've spoken about this before when we were dealing with error workflows. How you could set up an error workflow that catches any error and then stores the information and sends you a message telling you, hey, come check this out. It goes beyond that as well, right? You could store information on automations themselves. So like every time an automation runs, you can store all that information and then look through it. Maybe feed the information to an AI to have it like look through and see, when it started, when it ended, if there's anything to optimize, and so on and so forth. And that way you get more insights quicker and you can iterate quicker. You can set up alerts for yourself. You can have the system evolve sort of with you, sort of grow with you as you grow your business. So logs and triggers for reviews, AI powered sort of analysis, those are really big things for me, and I feel like there's something that you should definitely consider in your own workflows. So this is something I do a lot, so I feel like you should be doing it too. Reuse blocks to multiply leverage, right? I spoke about this like literally a few minutes ago. Sub workflows are everything. They're like super powerful. And what you need to understand, like it's what I spoke about as well. Um, every output is nothing more than an input to another process. Every system is a building block for another system. Why do you need to reinvent the wheel? Why do you need to solve the same problem twice? Right? You have to start building a library of logical chunks that you can just put together, plug and play into other bigger logical chunks that do bigger and bigger things. Right? You increase your speed, you deepen your insight, you level up your game, just with the smallest things. Because at the end of the day, the more you build, the more you can build, and the more you understand how to build. And so you'll just be building better and bigger things, like just by sort of having this mode of thinking of the fact that you're going, whatever you build, you're going to just be reusing it in another way. And finally, you need to start thinking in terms of building things once so that you can delegate that task to them forever, right? I think of flows as like hyper specialized employees, and I remember when I was like sort of like I had this fantasy of like building a one person AI agency with like every sort of employee I ever had in the agency was an AI agent. Back then it felt like a crazy idea, but with the recent developments in AI agents, it's looking like it's definitely possible. Um, so when you're building systems, you're basically just outsourcing, right? Think about any sort of document processing, like an invoice processing system, would be not, like you'd normally have an employee do that type of stuff for you. But if you're building a system that does that for you, then you're literally just delegating all of that work for that employee to the system. Right? Your goal is never actually automation; it's autonomy. It's creating a living thing that can do work. Right? It can make smart decisions, so you don't have to. Okay, maybe it's just my god complex flowing out again, but yeah, like I love this shit so much. And I have a like a really good feeling about the direction the industry is going, and I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And this isn't just for businesses, right? This mode of thinking, of like sort of building systems and thinking in terms of inputs, functions, and outputs, you can apply it into anything, right? Think of relationships. So what kind of inputs should you be putting into your relationships? What kind of functions should you be building in your relationships to get the right outputs, right? Think of time management, think of content, learning. Everything is just input, function, output. Everything is just systems. Systems thinking leads to scaled outputs, right? That's true leverage, and that's the type of leverage that you actually want in your life. Um, Thank you for watching. I don't have anything else to say. This has just been, me giving you my thoughts and feelings, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.